Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin by extending my warmest wishes to our armed forces, both at home and overseas, as well as to the emergency services and everyone working tirelessly over the festive period. Let me also wish you, Mr. Speaker, the House staff, and all members of this House a very Merry Christmas. But as we approach this season of goodwill, it is only right that we turn our attention to the promises made by this government and the broken trust that has followed. For years, the Prime Minister and his cabinet have used the WASPI women as political pawns, playing with their futures and their dignity. The Deputy Prime Minister herself once accused the Conservatives of stealing pensions and vowed to compensate these women in full. Yet, like so many promises from this government, that too was abandoned. Now they admit that we were right all along. But what about another group of pensioners whose trust has been shattered? This government has slashed winter fuel payments, leaving many vulnerable. Since these cuts, how many more people have had to apply for pension credit to make ends meet? The Prime Minister responds with a rehearsed defense, claiming that the government's priority was to fix the finances left in disarray by the previous administration. He boasts about tough choices and insists that vulnerable pensioners are protected, pointing to campaigns encouraging pension credit applications. However, the reality is far less encouraging. There are 850,000 pensioners eligible for pension credit who are not claiming it. If they were to apply, it would cost the Treasury £2.3 billion, a figure that would negate any supposed savings made by cutting winter fuel payments. How does the government reconcile this contradiction? The Chancellor, in cutting these payments, failed to consider the consequences. Cutting winter fuel payments not only risks the health and well-being of pensioners, but also places additional strain on councils and the NHS. Councils across England are now scrambling to fund basic support for struggling pensioners. Energy bills are skyrocketing, despite promises to reduce them by £300. In Scotland, the government there is working to restore winter fuel payments, understanding the real and immediate impact these cuts have on people's lives. Tragically, many pensioners will suffer, and some may even lose their lives this winter because of these callous policies. Did the Chancellor even consider these implications, or was this yet another example of this government's incompetence? The Prime Minister dodges the issue, shifting blame to others and repeating lines about the triple lock, which ensures pensioners receive a £470 increase next April. He criticises the opposition for questioning its sustainability, yet he sidesteps the immediate reality facing pensioners this winter. The opposition's concerns are not about rejecting the triple lock, but about addressing the immediate suffering caused by this government's decisions. Pensioners should not have to choose between heating their homes and eating a meal because of policies that disregard their basic needs. While the government boasts about its budget and claims it is driving prosperity, the reality on the ground is starkly different. Inflation is rising, the economy is shrinking, and job losses are mounting. Family businesses and charities are being hit hard. Take the case of Marie Curie, a cancer charity that has warned that the budget will cost it nearly £3 million annually, forcing it to reduce its services. This is a devastating blow to those who rely on such organizations for end-of-life care. Did the Chancellor consult with charities, businesses, or local authorities about the impact of these measures? Or was this another instance of rushed policymaking without thought for the consequences? The Prime Minister attempts to deflect by accusing the opposition of hypocrisy, pointing to their past statements on winter fuel payments. Yet this is not a partisan issue, it is a matter of humanity. Cutting winter fuel payments with little notice endangers the health and finances of millions of older people. It is not just cruel, it may cost more in the long term as the NHS and social care systems are burdened with preventable crises. The government must take responsibility for its actions and recognise the broader implications of its decisions. Hospices are another sector left struggling by this budget. They believe the measures will cost them an additional £30 million, jeopardising their ability to provide vital services. Yesterday, Conservatives voted to exempt nurseries, social care, charities and hospitals from the new jobs tax, yet Labour opposed these exemptions. The Prime Minister must clarify whether his government plans to support hospices or whether they will be left to fend for themselves. He has promised record funding for the NHS, but what about the end-of-life care that hospices provide? These organisations play a critical role in supporting families during their most challenging times. Surely they deserve more than empty promises. The opposition's questions highlight the disconnect between the government's rhetoric and the reality facing millions of people. The Prime Minister talks of prosperity and wage growth, but for whom? Energy bills are rising, inflation is eroding savings, and pensioners are facing a winter of hardship. The government's choices are not just political decisions, they are moral failings that leave the most vulnerable to bear the brunt of their policies. Beyond pensions and winter fuel payments, this government's economic policies have broader consequences. Jobs are being lost, businesses are struggling, and councils are grappling with reduced budgets. The Prime Minister's attempts to paint a rosy picture fall flat in the face of mounting evidence that their approach is failing. This is not about one party's agenda versus another's. It is about the duty of any government to protect its citizens, especially the most vulnerable. The Prime Minister dismisses these concerns as partisan attacks, accusing the opposition of wanting the benefits of government spending without the willingness to pay for them. Yet this deflection does nothing to address the immediate suffering caused by their decisions. Pensioners, charities, and local authorities are all calling for support, but their pleas are met with silence or vague promises of future action. This lack of accountability is emblematic of a government that prioritizes optics over outcomes. As we approach the new year, the government has an opportunity to reconsider its approach. It must address the immediate crises facing pensioners, charities, and local communities. This is not about scoring political points. It is about recognizing the humanity of those who are struggling and taking meaningful action to support them. The government must own its decisions, acknowledge their impact, and work collaboratively to find solutions. The opposition will continue to hold the government to account, not for the sake of political rivalry, but for the sake of the people who depend on effective governance. This winter, pensioners, families, and businesses are facing unprecedented challenges. They deserve more than platitudes and broken promises. They deserve leadership that prioritizes their well-being above all else.